Okay, so I'm going to talk about my three favorite pastime events. Some people will say they're hobbies, but my three favorite things that I like to do. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but obviously, you're going to know one of my favorite hobbies, which is YouTube. I would say YouTube probably is now my largest of all hobbies. I would say that it probably takes up maybe 70% of my hobby time. Only because I'm trying to always do better by it. Always try to figure out, unique things. I do a little bit of research on it, that type of thing. And I feel like any sort of hobby, you have to have a research. You should research it to make sure you can do it more effectively, that type of thing. One thing I should say, though, is if you do choose to go at YouTube as a hobby, now there's two things. I think that you can be a YouTube hobbyist by just watching, and you can also be a YouTube hobbyist by doing, and you can also do both. I'm someone who does both. I used to just watch nothing but YouTube videos, how tos, things like that, and just interesting geeky things. That would be my biggest thing. Now, I've even learned a lot of things actually on YouTube, believe it or not. Now, actually, as you know, make stuff on YouTube. So I make videos and do my own DIY stuff and all of that type of thing, right? But one thing that you should keep in mind with YouTube is that, because people ask about the money thing, and if you notice, a lot of YouTubers get really, they kind of get scared of that topic. But most people on YouTube, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people on YouTube make really no money. So you have to keep in mind that this is something that is purely a hobby. If you think you're going to retire tomorrow, probably not going to happen. Are there people who make a lot of money off of YouTube? Absolutely. People like PewDiePie, for example, one of the most wealthiest YouTubers out there, makes a lot of money. And then there's some people who make nothing. And a lot of people typically make nothing. So if you're gonna get into making videos, get into it knowing that up front, that it's a slow going process. You may not get a lot of viewers, but try to aim to get as many video views as possible. Video views is what really is important. It's not, you can have 1,000 subscribers and get no one really watching them, and you have someone who may have 20 subscribers, and they may have not only their own subscribers watching, but they have people who aren't even subscribed to them watching that video. Well, that means that person that has 20 versus the person that has 1,000, and they maybe only get a few views every now and again. The person that has 20 is more likely to make money than the person that has 1,000. So keep that in mind, that just because a channel has a huge number of people, it's not what's important. You have to look at the number of views. For example, our channel has quite a lot more views than we do in terms of subscribers. So if you look at there's some channels that I know that I watch and I look at and things like that, and they may be 2 or 3 times bigger than we are, but yet our view numbers are higher. And thank you very much, folks, for watching us. I really do appreciate it, by the way. But our view numbers are higher, so therefore we stand the chance of making more than the person that has even more viewers, but we have more viewership. Is that right? Yeah. So YouTube, that's going to be number one, takes up about 70% of my interest overall. My second biggest of all-time hobbies would be gaming. Now, I know that doesn't sound like, and I'm not talking like casino gaming. I mean, it used to be back in the day when I was, Playboy and I was throwing money around. But now, since I have a family and I can't really throw dollars anymore, it is computer games. Now, I used to get into computer games back in the day when I was younger, and then kind of stopped, and now I'm getting back into it again. Age of Empire, Castle Siege, it takes up all my time, my free time. It takes up quite a bit of it. I'm going to say that it takes up about 25% of my hobby time. And I say this because it is such an addictive game for me. I'm very competitive by nature. This game, and I'm going to have a video of me actually playing it, and you can see people, beating me and me beating people too. But the whole concept of it, and it's an Xbox game, but they also have it as a computer game back in the day. But I have a Windows operating system, so we pretty much get, or I can get those types of games. But anyway, your goal is to build up your little village. You have to protect your castle from invading armies. If someone, and it could be anyone, if someone comes and they fight your village, you should have enough defenses there to pretty much stop them from destroying your castle. That's the whole goal. You want to take as little, destruction as possible, and you want to make sure that you kill the enemy as quickly as you can. So, let's say that you're trying to storm my castle. I'm going to have as much force out there as possible, enough towers, enough soldiers, enough little booby traps and what you name it, to stop you from advancing and destroying my castle, and from destroying the entire village. If you get a 100% destruction rate, you get actually more benefit. You also get to take a lot, or loot a lot, of the opponent's resources. So stone and food and wood and all that type of stuff, right? So yes, that is something that also takes up quite a bit of my time because it's very competitive. I have 2 or 3 people who we go back and forth. They'll attack me and then I'll get revenge. And we go back and forth, and sometimes they get a 100% destruction rate, meaning they destroy 100% of all I have, and sometimes they only get like 5%. And sometimes same thing with me. So it just depends on, and there's some folks that this is what they do all the time. They're really good at it. But yeah, it's one of my hobbies. Now, as far as any other games outside of Age of Empires, right now, not so much. I have some on here, but I really, again, Age of Empires is what takes, when we talk about if gaming is going to be, what did I say, 25%, Age of Empires takes up 99% of that. And then the rest would be like Angry Birds. And then probably Angry Birds and Pokemon Go. I know, it's sad. Pokemon Go used to be pretty high up. Now it's kind of fallen off. My third, and I really shouldn't even give it this high of a rating anymore, even at 5%, because 75%, as I mentioned, was YouTube, 25% gaming. This is 5%. I don't even know if I could say this is true any longer, but it used to be 100% would be brewing beer. I'm someone who used to drink a lot of beer. I used to make it. I used to really study it. I used to understand how to to change the aroma. Obviously, it's by hops. What type of hops are going to work best for a certain type of brew, how to make a really strong stout. Of course, porters and stouts were my favorites. The whole chemistry behind it, dry hopping, which obviously you put in the hops after you've done the brew and everything like that, and all of that. Now, I have to say, since I'm giving tips here on all my little hobbies, with brewing beer, you want to make sure that you do not damage the wort. Now, what I mean by that is that there comes a point when you actually, during the boiling process, that you can actually make the liquid that's in there, especially if you're using like a malt, it can actually stick to the bottom and burn. So, just like if you were to burn, I don't know, you cooking anything on the stove and it gets too hot underneath, it's going to stick and it's going to burn. Well, you have to constantly, to prevent the wort from burning, or actually the malt and things like that, and all the sticky that's in there, you have to constantly make sure you keep it stirring. You don't have to constantly sit there and stir it, but you want to keep that fluid going, and you want to make sure that the malt and all the extract kind of just break up and actually get inside of the actual overall wort. And then therefore, you're good to go. Obviously, you want to make sure that you pay attention to when you're actually doing your flavoring, because your hops will add your flavor, your hops will add your aroma. You want to make sure you follow the guidelines for that. I used to experiment. I had certain recipes that, everybody has and that they give you, and, you go and you pick up kits and things like that. But I also got to the point of where I started just experimenting. I just would get a bunch of ingredients, a bunch of different types of grains, and I would go and grind them up. You know, I mean, this was like straight up. Before in kits, like everything was done for you, packaged for you. You just have to read it and follow it. And now, when I got up here, I became definitely a little bit more hipster, and I mean, as you can see, and so I started to just experiment on my own. Now, one thing I didn't do was I didn't do a all grain type thing. I'm a little nervous of all grain, and everyone that I've spoken to who have done all grain say, don't be afraid of doing all grain. It's not something to be worried about. It's actually a whole lot better. Yada, yada, yada. I get it. But for me, it was one of those types of things where I'm like, I don't think I'm quite ready to do that yet. I need a little bit more under my belt before I actually step in and actually do that. But overall, there's nothing to really fear when it comes to doing this. You know, I was doing 5-gallon batches, which takes a while if you're going to consume them on your own, you know, because you have to bottle it. It makes about 40-something bottles, I believe. It's been about a year or so since I've actually brewed. I still keep a lot of recipes on standby. I still do some research from time to time. So that's why I give it a 5%er in terms of just what I spend my time on in terms of my hobbies. But that's pretty much it. I mean, now you get to know a little bit more about me personally and what I actually like to do as far as hobbies and all that type of stuff. So there you go. YouTube takes up the biggest. By far, gaming comes in number 2, and then number 3 would be brewing beer. Hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I'll see you. Take care.